Welcome back to Passionate About Music Education, a channel dedicated to you, the music educator. My name is Rachel Hardman, and today we're going to talk about how you can help your piano students in the classroom. I'm sure, like myself, you have found that you have a lot of students in your classroom who play the piano. And how do we encourage them to use those piano skills within our general music classroom, within our ensembles, our bands, our choirs? What can we do to help them? Generally, we find that we have those beginner to intermediate stage piano students in our classroom, particularly up until the end of our middle school general music program. So we need to find a way to encourage them to use their musical skills, but without giving them pieces that are way too hard or beyond their current performance ability. So here are a couple of top tips that you can use in the classroom to help your piano students, to encourage them to use their piano skills and to see the links between what they're doing in their piano lessons and how they can connect that with what you're doing within the classroom. My first tip is to encourage your students to use their own repertoire if you're doing performance skills. If you are teaching a general music class and most of those students are learning beginner keyboard skills with you in the classroom and they're not having piano lessons, there is no point giving Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and those really easy pieces to your grade 1, 2, 3 standard player. It's really good practice to get those piano students to use that time to practice. Because let's be honest, if they're learning the piano, then the chances are they're also on sports teams and learn other instruments. So you giving them space to work on something that stretches them is a really good idea. It also encourages the rest of the class to hear that development. So if I start at the beginner stage, by the time I get to grade 6 or grade 7, this is what I could sound like on the piano. So it also inspires other students. My next tip, of course, is to ask your student to demonstrate. If you've got a particularly talented piano student, get them to demonstrate what they're playing in their music lessons. Get them to demonstrate how to play the blues if you're playing in the blues. Encourage that student to demonstrate and use their piano skills in a way that they can shine. In my general music classrooms, I always do lots of composing tasks, particularly with my middle school students, because it prepares them going on to high school. And if they're doing the exam boards like GCSE or IB or A-level, then they need to have good sort of foundation in composing, which I always do in that middle school age. You know, there's 3 years of middle school. This is a perfect time to encourage your piano students to use their piano skills within the composing task, particularly group projects. The one bit of advice I would always give you is be careful that your piano student doesn't try to make it too complicated and they then get frustrated because they actually get behind on the task because they're actually trying to make it perfect. Whereas their peers who don't play musical instruments tend to not care as much, so they'll just play random notes until they find something that they like. So be aware that your piano student may take longer to do the composition task because they're trying to get it right and to sound right. So you might need to give them a bit more guidance, perhaps a chord structure, perhaps a melodic phrase, just so that they can keep within the parameters and the time frame of your project. If you run a band program, you want to find a way of encouraging your piano students to be involved in it. Now, a lot of people would just take them off of the piano and put them on percussion. And of course you can do that. And of course they could learn a second instrument. But if they really love the piano, you've got to try and find a way of making that work. Now, what I have done in the past, particularly for the beginner intermediate students, I've either simplified a flute part or a clarinet part or a string part, depending on the ensemble that they're involved in. I might give them the simplified percussion part. I might create a simplified piano part for them that has maybe the bass part in, the cello part, the double bass part, so that they can play along and be involved in the group, but without the music being too difficult. I've had students who come to join jazz band who are beginner intermediate piano players, but of course those jazz parts are too complicated and too difficult for them to play. So again, you're looking at simplifying those parts. It does take time, but it does allow that student to get involved in the group and to feel some sense of accomplishment and give them a way of learning how to play in an ensemble, which is quite a difficult skill for piano players to develop. It's why a lot of our intermediate and beginner piano students struggle with sight reading, because they're not really being exposed to it in the same way as our woodwind and brass players are. Once they get to a decent standard, you may find that you are able to use them to accompany, play simple accompaniments for your bands or your choirs or your woodwind ensembles, whatever you're running. I've had IB students who have accompanied the school choir and given them ownership to go away and learn the piece and then accompany them. It's such a really valuable skill for piano students to be able to learn how to accompany, and by giving them simple music to play and accompany maybe a beginner choir or a beginner woodwind group, they learn how to blend the parts and to support the ensemble. That's a really great skill. I've had quite a lot of students who've come through my programs, and at that sort of top end of high school they have accompanied, and it has made such a massive difference to them as performers and them as piano players. I think the other challenge is, where do your piano students perform within the school year? If you're running a big choral program or a big band program, you'll be showcasing at Christmas and in the spring those big groups, because that's what you're working on day to day. You want to show that, you know, your massive concert band and the 3 pieces they've learnt at the term. So where do you put your beginner piano players? You might put your most advanced top school piano player in as a soloist, but generally you won't put those beginner students in because there isn't time, and their pieces are generally like 30 seconds, 40 seconds long. Now, it doesn't mean they don't have value, it's just how do you incorporate that? So having had this problem for many years, I started putting on tea time concerts, mini informal recitals, so that my piano students could perform to their parents and their parents could see their progress. It was a free evening. Sometimes we'd have tea and coffee put on by, you know, either the department, or it would be like student services, or it would be a group in the school who are raising money for charity. So if they're going on a school trip and they need to create funds, they're the perfect group to help with that. And it's really informal, but you can have your complete beginner students come up, play their 30-second piece, their grade 1 piano pieces, and get that experience of performing. And they actually really benefit from this. The parents can see how well they're progressing. They continue to pay for music lessons. And of course, the following time you do this concert, those students will be so much more proficient at playing. If you're in a school where it's easy to do this, maybe in your primary school, and you have a weekly assembly, then maybe encourage your students to play the piano as they enter in the room, to have that 1-minute performance at the beginning so you can rotate your soloist. Another option is, of course, to do lunchtime concerts where you open the music department up and then you have, piano recital performances, and friends can come in and your colleagues and teachers can come in too. I hope this gives you some ideas on ways that you can incorporate your piano students into your program and give them an opportunity to shine and to be involved in the program. I'd love you to share your best tips on how you encourage your piano students to be involved in the comments below. As always, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave comments, share with your colleagues, and I look forward to seeing you again here on the channel. This is Passionate About Music Education, and I am Rachel Hardman.